Imagine an England still touched by the quiet charm of country life, fields of green stretching endlessly, carriages rattling gently along dirt roads, and small towns where every bit of news spreads within minutes. In this calm but socially delicate world sits the Bennet household, a place full of laughter, chatter, and the constant hum of family life. The Bennets have 5 daughters: Jane, Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, and Lydia. Each of them is different. Jane is serene and kind, Elizabeth is clever and lively, Mary is solemn, Kitty is easily influenced, and Lydia is wild and bold. Their mother, Mrs. Bennet, lives with one mission constantly on her mind: getting her daughters married. Not just married, married well. With no sons in the family, the Bennet estate will eventually be inherited by a distant cousin, Mr. Collins. When Mr. Bennet passes away someday, the girls have no legal claim to their own home. This fear gnaws at their mother daily, and she hardly lets a moment pass without thinking about possible suitors, opportunities, and future sons-in-law. The story truly begins one summer day when rumors float across the village that a wealthy, unmarried gentleman, Mr. Charles Bingley, has rented a grand nearby estate called Netherfield Park. Mrs. Bennet's excitement skyrockets instantly. She speaks about Bingley to her husband with dramatic enthusiasm, urging him to visit the man immediately so that the Bennet girls might be introduced to him. Mr. Bennet, who has a subtle, dry sense of humor, teases his wife, pretending he will not visit. But secretly, he does. When he returns with the news, Mrs. Bennet goes into complete delight. She begins imagining weddings before the poor man has even unpacked his bags. The much-anticipated first meeting occurs at a large local ball. It's a lively affair, music playing, gowns sweeping the floor, laughter echoing. As soon as Mr. Bingley walks in, everyone can sense his open friendliness. He is warm, sociable, and quick to smile at people, even strangers. His eyes soon find Jane Bennet, who stands in soft elegance. She is serene, modest, and lovely, and Bingley is instantly drawn to her. Before long, he asks her to dance. Their harmony on the dance floor, their gentle conversation, and the comfort they show around each other make people whisper already. But not everyone makes such a charming impression. Standing beside Bingley is his close friend, Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy, a richer, more serious, and far more reserved gentleman. Darcy's demeanor at the ball seems stiff and aloof. He dances little and speaks even less. His expression remains cool, as if he feels himself above the noisy chatter of the room. His pride creates an invisible barrier around him. Later in the evening, Bingley encourages Darcy to dance, pointing toward Elizabeth Bennet with admiration. But instead of accepting, Darcy glances briefly in Elizabeth's direction and utters the fateful words that she is tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt him. Elizabeth overhears this, though Darcy does not know it. Rather than allowing herself to be wounded, she laughs privately at the absurdity of the man's arrogance. But something settles in her heart, a firm and instant dislike of Mr. Darcy. Over the next weeks, Bingley and Jane grow closer. Bingley comes to visit often, always eager for any excuse to see her. Elizabeth watches her sister's happiness bloom. Meanwhile, Elizabeth keeps encountering Darcy in situations that force them together: dinners, walks, social gatherings, but every meeting seems to increase her negative impression of him. His quietness appears as judgment. His reserve looks like disdain. What Elizabeth cannot see, what Darcy barely admits even to himself, is that he is beginning to admire her. Her lively eyes, her clever remarks, her warmth toward others, all these things unsettle him. He tries to fight his growing fascination. After all, her family is socially beneath his, and her mother's excited behavior is often embarrassing. Yet despite these inconveniences, he finds himself drawn to Elizabeth more with each passing day. Meanwhile, another young man enters their world: Mr. George Wickham, a charming and handsome soldier whose smile instantly wins over Elizabeth's trust. On one pleasant afternoon walk, Wickham shares a heartbreaking story. He claims that Darcy wronged him, cheated him out of a promised inheritance left by Darcy's late father, a man Wickham says he loved dearly. The sincerity in Wickham's voice, his gentle eyes, and his hurt expression make Elizabeth believe every word. And since she already dislikes Darcy, the story feels like confirmation of everything she thought she knew. Her prejudice deepens. Time passes, and the story becomes more tangled. Mr. Collins, the pompous cousin destined to inherit the Bennet home, pays a long visit. He speaks endlessly about himself and his patron, the wealthy and intimidating Lady Catherine de Bourgh. He quickly decides that the practical thing to do is to marry one of the Bennet daughters. He first chooses Jane, because she is the eldest, but when he learns she may soon be engaged to Bingley, he shifts his focus to Elizabeth. What follows is one of the most awkward proposals in the history of awkward proposals. Mr. Collins, with theatrical gestures and a self-important tone, asks Elizabeth to marry him, speaking at length about how she should feel honored. Elizabeth refuses. He tries again, assuming she is modestly pretending. She refuses again more firmly. Mrs. Bennet panics. Mr. Bennet calmly protects Elizabeth's decision, and Collins eventually moves on to Elizabeth's best friend, Charlotte. Charlotte, older and more pragmatic, accepts Collins's offer. Elizabeth is shocked, but tries her best to understand that her friend wants stability and security in a society that offers women little else. Then suddenly, without warning, Bingley leaves for London. Jane is devastated. Elizabeth grows suspicious. She begins to believe that Darcy, along with Bingley's snobbish sisters, convinced him to abandon Jane because they considered her family inferior. Months later, Elizabeth visits Charlotte in her new home. As fate would have it, Darcy is staying nearby. Elizabeth is unsettled by how often she finds him around. Their conversations are awkward but charged with some new energy, a tension that Elizabeth tries to ignore. One day, when Elizabeth is completely unprepared, Darcy walks into the room with visible agitation in his face. He begins speaking in a voice struggling between control and emotion. Then suddenly the words burst out. He loves her. He loves her against his will, against his reason, against the expectations of his world, and he wants her to marry him. Elizabeth is stunned, and then furious. His confession, wrapped in comments about her lower status and embarrassing family, sounds like a man who thinks he is lowering himself to marry her. She rejects him passionately, accusing him of ruining Jane and Bingley's relationship and of treating Wickham cruelly. Darcy leaves in shock, hurt by her words. But the next morning, he finds her alone and hands her a letter that explains everything. He admits he did interfere with Jane and Bingley, but only because he believed Jane did not care for Bingley and feared his friend would suffer heartbreak. He apologizes sincerely. Then he reveals the truth about Wickham. Wickham was given money, gambled it away, begged for more, lied repeatedly, attempted to manipulate Darcy's younger sister, and tried to run away with her for her fortune. Darcy was forced to protect his family's honor. Elizabeth reads the letter again and again. Her certainty begins to crumble. She begins to realize she misjudged Darcy and Wickham. Her pride in her own ability to judge character and her prejudice against Darcy's quiet, awkward demeanor blinded her from the truth. She returns home with her thoughts heavy and her heart unsettled. And then disaster strikes. Lydia, the youngest and most reckless Bennet sister, runs away with Wickham. They are not married, and Wickham has no intention of marrying her. The scandal is enormous. It threatens to disgrace the entire Bennet family forever. When Elizabeth learns the news, Darcy happens to be visiting her aunt and uncle. His face changes immediately, and without a word, he leaves. Days later, to everyone's shock, Lydia returns home married to Wickham. But how? Wickham had debts, no income, no intention to marry. Someone must have paid him. Elizabeth later learns the truth. It was Darcy. He found Wickham, confronted him, paid off every debt, and persuaded him to marry Lydia. He did all this quietly, never seeking credit, never expecting Elizabeth to know. Her heart changes. Darcy returns with Bingley, who realizes at last that Jane truly loves him. He proposes, and Jane joyfully accepts. Darcy, meanwhile, approaches Elizabeth gently, uncertainly. They walk. They talk. Everything between them has changed. And when he finally proposes again, this time with humility, respect, and no pride, Elizabeth answers with a full heart. Yes. They laugh about their misunderstandings, about how foolish they both once were, and about how far they've come. And so Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy begin a marriage built not on first impressions, but on genuine understanding, proving perhaps that love grows best when pride softens and prejudice fades.